Welcome to the Film Gods podcast, everyone. This episode, I want to let you know about a great man who is feeding our doctors and nurses. Philip Juma, head chef and founder of Juma Kitchen, didn't want to put his incredible skills of making delicious food, and I've tasted it, it's amazing, to waste during lockdown. So when Borough Market closed its doors, he took it upon himself to feed our NHS staff. He's single-handedly making hundreds of meals for them every week. And if you want to help feed our heroes, go to jumakitchen.com. Yeah, I'm saying it again. That's jumakitchen.com and donate. Let's clap them on the Thursday and feed them on a Friday. Massive love and respect going out for Juma Kitchen.
Let's get started.
Hola, film family. I'm Isusko, your host, aka the Time Scheduler. Welcome to the Film Gods podcast, which is a chat with the best of the UK film crew who make all of those beautiful moving images you watch every day. I want to give a special thanks to Island Studios for the recording space. Thank you, Mark, Mitch, Pauline, and the whole team. And wherever you're listening, hope you enjoy. Big love. So, hi, film family. With the COVID-19 madness that's happening, I'm kind of branching out. So instead of it just being film crew, and we're going to start touching out to kind of ad agencies and post-production world. And I'm privileged to have our first global Zoom chat. Big up. So tell the listeners who you are and what it is that you do and who you work for.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Gregson. I am a general manager / producer at Space66 Australia. We are a network of studios, digital studios, originally based in London. We branched out to New York, and we're now in Australia, Sydney, where I'm currently sat. Been in the industry now for about 10 years, give or take. And I actually came out from the London office where I was head of production and then for a short period managing director to set up the studio over here. And very, very pleased to be with you and talking to us, Cisco.
Oi, oi. So what's the route in then? Well, how do you do it? Do you have to do a degree in what you do? And, just tell us how you got to where you are.
Yeah, interesting routine for myself, actually. And it's one I often don't get a chance to talk about much, but I came in fairly late to a lot of people around me.
What does that mean in age group? Is that what's
so
late?
In age group, I was probably I was probably 25, 26, maybe a little bit later, actually, 26, 27. Because like many people, I didn't know what I wanted to do after university. I really didn't. My dad was in the industry. He was an ad man. He was in the ad agency world during its heyday, as an account manager, kind of just after the Mad Men season 6 or 7, probably was when he got involved. But he was quite disgruntled at the industry because he had reached the end of his, the age group now is even younger as well. So he got quite lucky in that he reached about 50, 55 before they started looking at him like, you're ancient, you're a fossil, get out of here.
Wow.
He said, Chris, you don't want to get into the advertising industry. It's full of snakes. Do something you really enjoy. And the only thing I knew that I loved was building and construction, because there's some part-time jobs I'd had up to that point. So I joined Lang O'Rourke's graduate program as a geography student from university.
Love it.
They quickly decided after about 3 years that they were never going to let non-engineers onto their grad scheme as well. So I was there just at a time where they decided to broaden their horizon as a construction giant, and not just recruit engineers from university. Let's bring in some geography students as well and see what happens. Didn't go well, and I proved that. But it was a bit similar to now in that I was there during a recession. I was sent up to Liverpool to work to begin with, about 2 years in, up from London, which I loved. And then they moved me to Barnsley, and I didn't like that, working away from home. Next, if I wanted to keep my job, it would have been Dubai.
Yeah.
And I didn't fancy that. So my dad, after about 3 or 4 years there, said, "You know what? I reckon you'd really enjoy advertising." So
That was
he
a
had kind
change
of
of heart.
changed his tune
Yeah.
completely. You know, hindsight, he had chilled out a bit, but it was interesting. He warmed me up to it again, and I just started reaching out to anyone I knew. I actually took 2 weeks off work and went down to London from where I was boarding in Leeds and working in Barnsley. And I worked for 2 weeks as an intern, really, an old account manager, an old creative director, in fact, that my dad had worked with, Jamie Colonna. He still works in the industry. He brought me in, and I basically mirrored an account manager who's gone on to real successful things. She was awesome. And I just worked as hard as I could. And I think the fact I was willing to do that while I had a paid job, had come down from up north. You know, people want to help you out. You know, if you're a little bit street smart, a little bit older, shall we say, than maybe, you know, a 19-year-old that clearly doesn't want to be there, sat in an agency, showed willing. And I had that 2 weeks, and that was enough to then blag my way into an actual job. And I literally lied my way into a job, and I still work for the same company that gave me that break. So it was, I think, yeah, thinking back, I probably said that those 2 weeks were in fact maybe 6 months. But that really didn't matter. The guy I met, John Wiltshire, who's the owner of Space66 and a number of other companies, Addictive Pixel and Pool Group, he brought me in as an assistant producer, working with Katie Farmer. So she was a friend of mine. She said, "You need to meet John. I need an assistant producer. Can you come in?" Went over to Bartle, Bogle and Hegarty, BBH London, just off Carnaby Street, met with John. It was basically just a chemistry meeting. He wanted to know that, you know, I was going to work hard. Katie had vouched for me. And I got that across in the space of about 10 minutes. It was perfect. But what happened is I was completely sold into the dream straight away, because I walked into this ad agency where everybody was young, everybody was beautiful, there was table tennis going on in the corner, no one was working, and I couldn't believe it. You know, it was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And they had all these great clients: Audi, Johnny Walker, Weetabix, British Airways, Barclays. And I just decided that's what I wanted to do. Like, it was a real booming time for advertising, in particular for this agency. Bartle, Bogle, Hegarty were about to win Agency of the Year, which is a huge thing, particularly if, you know, it's the agency office that you're in. So it was Agency of the Year isn't just the global group BBH, it was BBH London. So they were winning loads of clients as a result, because you're almost only as good as your awards in the field. So that was a really cool time. I was sold in on it, and I basically just worked my way up. I worked really hard, and I think.
How did you start? Where did you start off, or did you just coming in as an assistant producer? Do you have to have got some sort of base knowledge to do the job, or did you just have enough kind of confidence that you could just get through it?
Yeah, it was partly confidence. It was partly project management skills, I would say, are the most important thing. And a big part of kind of talking my way in, I guess, was saying I've been a project manager in everything I've done in terms of managing myself on this graduate program that I was on. You know, whilst I was on site and I'd been a procurement manager, I called myself, that's basically project management. They don't know what procurement managers do on a construction site. Ultimately, whatever you're doing, you're managing some kind of project. You know, you've got to get into work and you're responsible for something and seeing it through. So it was essentially that, but on a crazy scale that I wasn't used to. So the team that we had and still have, you know, might be 10 to 20 designers, you know, on the tools, glued to a screen, generally using Photoshop and maybe Illustrator and other Adobe Suite software. An animator might be sat next to them, chopping up video, making animations, using After Effects and other tools. Next to them might be a developer that's coding animations or coding websites. The team is having to be cohesive and work together. And I'm running around as a assistant project manager or studio manager, just making sure that I'm feeding back the client's wishes, what they want, helping brief it in to the team, to put everything in layman's terms, to simplify everything, and to relay that back from the designer, from the animator, from the developer. And we were doing that in-house at BBH, so we were a separate company, but we had a production team that occupied a third of one of the floors in the building, and it was a in-house external production specialist that they could use. So you imagine an ad agency is typically made up of specific roles, right? You've got a creative partnership who might be coming up with the idea, and that would be an art director and a copywriter. They will report into the overriding creative director, so executive creative director, an ECD. That's your Don Draper, essentially. So Don Draper from Mad Men, of course, will have some creative directors under him generally that would maybe have an office, and they might be responsible for 2 clients. Let's say it's Audi and it's Weetabix. Under that team, that creative director will have a series of a layer of art directors and copywriters that report into him or her. Yeah, so they go around in twos, and generally, they're always in the agency 24 hours a day. Generally, they're quite young. They work really hard. They're often great people, great to have a beer with, great copywriters. They come from any manner of backgrounds. A lot of them might do a bit of stand-up on the side, so there's these awesome characters wandering around the agency that I'm suddenly exposed to that are really great to chat to, that work really hard, and often think that they're the only ones that work hard as well. But that's the creative department. They're running around. In the ad agency as well is project managers, or some agencies call them producers, who manage the workflow. Then there's account managers, and then essentially there's strategists. They're the key. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that, the only ones that say the producers, account managers, and strategists, they're like the people that organize. Do they direct? Are they talking straight to client, or are they? How does it not all just kind of everyone's hitting? Does everyone just have specific roles that they just have to do then?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess a good way to think about it is the life cycle of a project, right, from start to finish. Mm-hmm. So the strategy department work very early on defining a brand's strategy, how they're going to sell shitloads of their product or their service. Mm-hmm. So often the strategist only gets involved at a very early stage upstream, often when you pitch to a client. So agencies will spend millions sometimes trying to pitch to win a new client, because once they win that client, they generally retain that client for X number of years. And will produce shitloads of campaigns for them and generate lots of money for them and from them. So strategy will be involved at that early period, winning the client.
Does that need? Does a creative come in? And is the strategy quite a creative process, or is it just about numbers and figures? How do you pitch to a client?
You pitch to a client. Good question. You pitch to a client essentially by proving market knowledge. Okay. That's definitely where the strategy person comes in.
Okay, so it's like you have 30% of this market, but we think that say if it is for Audi, there are other car brands, but say for Audi, the electric car market in 30 years' time will be worth 90% of da. So it's just about numbers and figures and future projections.
It is exactly that, but they will work very closely with the creatives in, okay, so they're defining that, yeah, there's a gap in the market. We know that 24 to 30-year-olds are going to be buying your product in 5 years' time, so we're going to go after them. We know that they're most active in these channels, Facebook, Snapchat, let's say, and our creative know-how is to target them with this kind of creative messaging. And this is why that works. And over to my creative director to sell you in on the dream, and they maybe start presenting on big art boards that you might fill the room, the pitch room with, literally scamps or illustrations and very lo-fi mock-ups of the ads and what they might look like. And generally you'll show them animations, you'll show them videos, you'll show them montages or hype reels of what good looks like. So it might be examples that are cut together of what the competition are doing, or it might be, we need to be different to the competition, we need to think more like Uber and less like Volkswagen. We consider ourselves Spotify rather than Audi. We're a tech leader, and here's why. So you sell in on the dream, and you do that with numbers, with the strategists, and you do that with creative and art with the creative teams. The art director and the copywriter, slightly lower down on the food chain, wouldn't generally come into those top level meetings. But one of the problems with the big agencies is, as soon as they win the client, the ones with the big cars never see their client again. And lower down the food chain suddenly becomes the go-to.
The day-to-day.
So yeah, you start working. The longer you work with an agency, the more junior the teams you're working with probably get. That's why they get fed up and go out to market and pitch.
Yeah. And the pitches, they sound like they take a lot of time to kind of put together. Is there a time frame that someone will go, right, we want to pitch to X, Y, and Z company. You've got 3 months. Give me a great pitch. Or is it like, fuck, it's happening next week?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. It all depends. So it's interesting. In the UK, my experience was very much, we know there's a pitch coming up in 4 weeks. We're going to work our fingers to the bone for 3 weeks. And then we're going to live in the office, the agency, for 24 hours a day for the last week, producing work. Over here, I guess the pool, the market we're in is very different. A pitch might not even involve face-to-face. It might be for a project. So over here, I've noticed that there's no solidarity, or what's the word? There's agencies are being dropped here all the time by brands. There's no loyalty. It will literally sometimes be campaign to campaign, rather than that 3-year lifespan with a brand, whereby an agency wins the work and they know they're going to work for that client for long enough to get under the hood, under the skin, and have ups and downs. Not every campaign is going to be successful. But going back to the bigger pitches, absolutely, they spend a huge amount of money doing it. There's stories of, I've heard stories from my old man and from people I've worked with of agencies. Let me think of some examples that I saw. We had we were pitching to BBC at a time where Strictly Come Dancing was massive.
Yeah,
BBC, big account. They were coming into BBH. It was the final pitch, probably one of the third of maybe 3. So, often they start and they might want to speak to 10 different agencies. They put a brief out. They have a look at what comes in and maybe say, right, we're going to see 6 of these face-to-face. They go in, first pitch. Often it's called a tissue meeting. Do they use that? You know that one? It's a tissue meeting. I'm not sure why. It's sometimes there's a chemistry meeting, then there's a tissue meeting. I'd love to know why it's called that, actually. And then it's like the full flex, full front meeting, the pitch. This was the full pitch, so they were hopeful. They probably knew that there was maybe 3 other big agencies that were in the runnings for this. Preferred bidders, they're sometimes called. So they come in. The agency was like 4 or 5 stories, but it had this big atrium in the middle. And everyone in the agency had been taught this like Strictly Come Dancing dance move. So you had a partner. Had a partner. And by the way, there's a lot of creative people in an ad agency that have great taste, particularly good agencies. So it sounds cheesy, but it was done well.
But can they dance? That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. Can they dance? So the clients walk in, they come out of the lift, and comes on, boom, like really loud, and everybody's dancing.
Amazing.
You know, so that was one. There's countless. There was.
I guess it's trying to show that if you can be that creative with winning a pitch, then they're like, if they're going this big,
exactly,
then they're gonna, what are they gonna do for us on a day to day?
Exactly. Nice. That's what you're doing. You're selling the dream. This is what we can do. The other one I'll tell super quick, which I just know from secondhand, is going back to maybe the 80s, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. But let's say it was the 80s. It was for British Airways, and they went to one of the big agencies. Let's say it was Publicis, Leo Burnett maybe. And they walked into the office, and they said, okay, so one of the problems agencies often have is they can't have 2 clients from the same pond. So if you work for Virgin Media, bad example, if you work for Qantas, you can't work for Virgin Australia at the same time, obviously. So these guys had some form of problem with that. But let's say BA walk in and they said to them, where's our team based? Because often they say, who's going to be working for us day to day, and where are they based in the building? Because some of our team are probably going to have to move into the agency. You're going to work that closely. And they were so sure that they were going to win the client at that point. They said, look across the road, and they looked through the window, and across the road was a whole fitted office that had been branded down to the carpet color and branded and painted in BA colors. And they said, basically, we're so sure we're going to win this. We've got the office ready, and it's fully fitted, and it's branded. That's when they were making way too much money back then. But that's
like a game of poker. You're like, you're just
crazy.
You're going all in.
Exactly, it is. And I think I was born in the wrong decade, because now I'm hustling to make $1,000. Like we've got we've got dollars over here, and it's so much harder to make money now. Just talking to my dad recently about the fee structure, how agencies now charge clients for services. There's a kind of trilogy within a basic trilogy that used to be true within advertising, and it's like the client, the ad agency, the creative agency, and the media agency. And now the lines are totally blurred between all of those, in that you've got brands, clients that are saying, we've got a creative department, we can do a better job than the agency, we'll come up with the ideas, and we've got designers, and we've got animators and directors, we can create the content, why not? Media agencies would buy the media space and amplify the creative, the ads. Now you've got conglomerates, you've got giant agencies that have both media and advertising, creative services under one roof. So there's blurred lines, and it's fierce competition, and we're dealing with this is why Space66, our company, can do quite well. We've got the background and the know-how and the knowledge with big brands, but we've got the agility and I guess we don't carry the huge overheads is one thing that the big agencies have, but we're nimble, we're agile, and we can turn our hand to quite a few of the new kind of bootstrapping techniques that everyone can use to create ads for creative. It's not just, you don't have to study for 10 years or for 5 years to know how to retouch and design an ad, or concept an idea and see it through, because you can practically do it on your PlayStation now. It's like making music. Everything's become more accessible, and as such, bootstrapping is a large part of what everyone needs to do, which is great for people coming into the industry.
I was going to say, for those people coming in, where if they just love the idea of making ideas and coming up with ideas, what's the route in? What should they be looking to do? What kind of things should they just ingest as much advertising as possible, or are there books that they can read? Are there things that they should do?
Yes, a good question. I think my kind of advice would be, first of all, if I could turn back the clocks and talk to myself, I probably wouldn't change anything. I like the fact that I tried a different industry and have some background in another industry, because in advertising and creative services, you're always going to be working with an end client, who's from a completely different walk of life and doesn't understand your terminology. And you need to be able to put yourself in their shoes from a business perspective to understand it. I almost wish I had more of that. From a creative perspective, I'm a producer ultimately, so I necessarily need to understand how to run the tools and edit videos and use After Effects and all that code and all that kind of stuff. But I need to know the basics of it, and I've acquired that over time. There's so much you can do to upskill yourself in all of that through YouTube, and that's actually where you can have a lot of fun. So if I was going to, the majority of the people that we employ or that work for us as freelancers are creative types. They're not producers. I'm managing them maybe, but they're designers, animators. Often they do both, or they're developers. If that's what you want to do, then immerse yourself in it. Use YouTube. Start creating content, whatever it may be, whatever you're interested in. Just start. It's like, when you're younger and we used to play around with VHS and creating videos. That was something you were into. You would get pretty good at it, and often that's where you would end up. Now, and I do it myself. I still do it myself. I still watch, YouTube tutorials on Photoshop. If I get some feedback from a client and I don't have a designer available there and then, and I don't quite know how to de-patch an image or retouch an image or whatever it may be, I quickly go to YouTube, type it in. I can find a tutorial on how it's done. It might take 2 minutes. Suddenly I've acquired that quick skill. And over the years, I've just built up basic knowledge on After Effects, basic Adobe Premiere, not bad on Photoshop, a little bit of coding. I could build you a very simple WordPress site because you can do that without any code whatsoever. So understanding how Squarespace works, or, some of the WordPress plugins work, trial and error. I think getting some experience is the interesting part. How do you do that? If I was trying to start out again and I didn't know Katie Farmer, and my dad didn't work in the industry and know Jamie Colonna, I would be looking at LinkedIn and I would be looking at agencies.
Nice.
I'd Google, top agencies to work at. You've got agencies as well. You've got advertising agencies and you've got production houses. Space66 are pretty much a production house, meaning that agencies will brief us in, or a brand would only brief us in if they've already got the idea. We don't have the creative directors or the strategists that I was talking about before. So if you just want to get on the tools and you want to work in a smaller crew and you want to, have a bit more, agencies would tell you that they have more fun. Production companies would tell you that they have more fun. But I think I love the production company because you get you get to interact with everyone, and I like being in the trenches and actually, you know, the kind of the production, seeing something from start to finish. I love that stuff. I don't like, you know, all the airy fairy farts and smoke and mirrors that selling into a brand. You have to go through all kinds of branding and stuff. We don't do a lot of branding, but I would recommend using LinkedIn ultimately.
Nice. And who should they be hitting up? The receptionist, an account manager, or just anyone that's they know?
I think it's it depends on what you want to do, and if you don't know what you want to do, hit up the receptionist. You know, it's nothing speaks as loudly as a face-to-face. So do whatever you can to get a face-to-face. You know, if you can send a letter, I always recommend writing a letter or sending a printout, because no one ever does that anymore.
Yeah.
So if you can literally print out a letter and send that to anyone, you know, chances are they're going to read it and they're going to think this really stands out. So that's one way you can do it. If you want to get into a big agency and get some big brand experience, there will be a department that that deal with people like this. In BBH, they had a scheme that was called the Barn, BBH Barn. And at any point, they will have maybe 5 creative pairs that have come in. They work for free. They get great exposure to all the brands under the agency. They practically live there. They meet, you know, they do a really good job of acquiring these duos. Sometimes they're fresh out of uni, often they're not. They're just, you know, they've just worked their way in. So that's one way of doing it. But yeah, I think the power of LinkedIn is great. It's great for finding new business, but it's great for finding a job as well. If you want to get into client services, so you're not necessarily creative, but you want to manage the client relationship, then find yourself an account director. I think it's always good to find yourself. Don't look for an account exec or account manager, because they'll probably look at you as competition and just think, I'm too busy to talk to you. If you go account director, they should have a bit more time on their hands. If you can find a way to strike a chord with them, do it. You know, be creative. If you're trying to get into the creative department, be as creative as you can in how you show your services. But put some it's pretty simple. Put some time into it. You know, if you're, you know, that's why the letter's good. It's different. You know, don't just send a Word doc, you know, with what you've been doing with yourself for the last X number of years. Create a website. It's so easy to do that. Create a Facebook page, you know, create something that's within one of those channels that, you know, brands, advertising agencies are telling brands to use to sell. So I'd recommend doing that. Yeah, it's funny. You hear all kinds of stories of routes in, but I think if you can strike a chord with someone, then do it. Yeah, you hear stories of people waiting outside offices, agencies, don't you, and knocking on doors and all the rest of it. But my route in, luckily, was through knowing someone.
Nice. All amazing stuff there, because I don't, from a crew perspective, LinkedIn doesn't really, it's not something that I'd ever say to a runner, oh yeah, go into LinkedIn, because it's all about Facebook. It's all about, as you said, trying to be creative with a CV instead of just sending a Word doc.
Yeah.
Your advice to your younger self then, if you were to kind of give yourself a couple of nuggets of just things that you know now, what would you be saying to the 24-year-old, 25-year-old Chris Gregson?
I would say confidence. You know, confidence is everything. And, you know, I lacked a lot of confidence in the early days because I had this, I always thought that I wasn't, you know, I always felt like I was coming into it a little bit late, and that I didn't know as much as everyone else, and therefore I lacked a bit of confidence to really come out of my shell. I think it took me maybe 2 to 3 years to come out of my shell once I had proved myself in the job. Now, the flip side of that is that there's a good side, because it meant I kept my head down and I wasn't distracted by all the cool stuff and all the drinking and all the partying that goes on in that world. And I worked hard. But at the same time, even in meetings, even in how I walked into the agency, how I carried myself, every conversation I had with an account manager, you know, I lacked confidence. And what you quickly realize is that nobody gives a shit if you don't understand a word. You know, no one gives a shit if terminology is something that you're struggling with because you're new to it. I, on a daily basis, speak to clients who say, sorry, what does that mean? And often it's probably because they either call it something else, even if they're completely new to it. Nobody's going to judge you on it. They will always respect the fact that you've asked the question. More importantly, when you're in production, as anyone in production will know, that's how mistakes happen if people don't ask questions. So I would say just be confident in my personality and myself, and ask as many questions, stupid questions as possible, really. Nice. It was funny. I was, you know, you preempted this, obviously, sending me the kind of questions that we were going to go over, and you asked for my go-to industry story, and I couldn't really think of one. Yeah. But all I thought about was like all the stupid times where, about 2 or 3 years into the job, the role, I kind of came out of my shell a bit, and a lot, you know, going out suddenly and going drinking and doing all the things I didn't do in the early days. I met so many people, so many good people, and a lot of them said, God, I thought you were so quiet for the, you know, the first couple of years, and you're this absolute lunatic. You know what I mean?
They got the full Chris Gregson experience.
Yeah. They were like, oh my God, you are completely, you know, and that's what a couple of drinks will do to you. But it was a lack of confidence. You know, I wasn't myself. I was quiet. You know, the great thing about the age, the digital age that we're in, is that a lot of these terms can be looked up, you know, glossaries and tools like exactly what you're doing here and what we're talking about, you know. We've got all of this at our fingertips, so we need to work hard all the time. And, you know, I listen to podcasts when I'm on the bus. At every moment I can, you know, I'm absorbing information and trying to stay relevant and upskill. And, you know, every 10 minutes there's some disruptor in our industries that comes in, and it's a new, better platform, a new way of finding stock imagery or video, or a new way of chopping up and editing on the fly or recording sound, whatever it may be. So keeping up to date with some of those things, and downloading free tools where you can is super important. Yeah.
I'm trying, like, for the life of me. So I started watching this from about last summer. I started watching this dude called Gary Vaynerchuk out in America.
Yeah.
And for the last, I don't know, 4 months, all he's been banging on about is TikTok. And I'm like, I've got to kind of take that plunge, and that kind of confidence that you're talking about. It's like having the confidence to be able to go onto these new platforms and just say what you want to say and be how you want to be.
Yeah.
I guess that could be just as good a CV now as writing in a Word doc, as you said. You know, I went to this uni and I did these degrees and I got these A levels.
Yeah, for sure. You know, TikTok is everybody's TikToking at the moment, obviously, because they're bored shitless in their homes. But did you sign up to it? How's it going over that?
I've signed up. I've put like 4 videos on, just because thing is, I just don't know. I'm like, I've got to figure it out, because it's like you either just copy everyone kicking fucking toilet rolls, or you start your own thing. So we'll get there. I'll do these.
What is it exactly? Is it 1 second?
No, the video, you can just do it. Like the latest one at the minute is people changing. So there's like a song that plays, and then they're like dressed up like I am now. I've been just woken up with scaggy hair, and then they like go boom, X-Men thing, and then they turn into like this beautiful, well pristine, and they're just like short little videos that will hopefully just get out and get like 1 million. Like videos get so many views that are just like, then they go viral just because it's such a new platform. And anyway, I'm looking into that, but I just, there's so, as you said, it's like upscaling. So for me, the whole getting into platforms and online this and online that is my upscaling. But it's been an amazing chat, and I don't want to take up more of your time, and I try and keep it within an hour. So we're getting close to that point. Okay. So I'll probably say, firstly, thank you for your time.
No problem.
And have you got any personal projects, any people, anything you kind of want to just give a shout out to before I'll let you go and enjoy your beer and have an evening?
Yeah, sorry, I've been drinking here because
I love it.
It's 6 p.m.
Just for the listeners, so I'm doing this in the morning. Chris is obviously in Australia, and I just for a split sec, because the sun, I've got the sun coming up, you got the sun just blasting in, and he went to take a drink, and it was a Heineken. I was like, this guy's drinking for breakfast. I was like, rudeness.
Wow, yeah, this is the world we're in. This is it. Everything's gone to nothing. So I'm drinking as soon as I wake up. Now, listen, project-wise, unfortunately, and to be completely frank and honest, all the projects we're working on have completely fallen in on us. We're due to the COVID crisis, obviously. So everything's on hold. We've got loads of small projects that all ended. The only thing I would say is it would be awesome if we can get some follows. We in this downtime we're trying to start producing content for ourselves, which we never do. We're working on our website, so we've just opened an Instagram for the first time in Australia. So Space66 Australia. We're going to be dishing out daily industry news, new releases by Facebook, work that we've done, how many million views a new Drake video has had, whatever we can to try and start producing some content.
Nice.
We're going to start trying to boost the SEO for our website as well. And a good way of doing that is through
SEO
Instagram.
For people means what?
Search engine optimization. So if a prospective client or individual searches for Sydney production company digital websites in Google, we want to be at the top of their list. Nice. Within Google. So optimizing your website and your content in order to be as far up the rankings on Google searches as possible.
How'd you do that?
There's loads of ways of doing that, and there's SEO agencies, millions of them out there that help you do that. So you do it by producing regular and good content for your website and channels. So Google knows if a user comes to you, how long they spend on a page, where they move on your website. By all of that movement, they know that you're producing engaging content on your site that's relevant. So if I do search for a Sydney-based advertising agency, and I go to Space66 site, and then as a user I spend 10 minutes on it, they know that my content's real good. I start jumping up the rankings. It used to be very different to that when Google wasn't as clever, and that's when websites, if you remember, used to have the same word repeated over and over again. So it would say, "We are Space66, a advertising agency in London. Space66 London. Space66 London advertising agency," and there'd be these awful pages with loads and loads of words on them because Google was just trawling the internet for how many instances of that keyword there were on your site.
Okay.
And now it's completely different. They're really good at awarding you for producing cool content, for having great user experience on your site. If you specialize in doing that for brands, chances are you never do it for your own website, which is why our website, unfortunately, has never been that great. But we've got loads of downtime now.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it.
It's new.
Yeah.
It's very new.
I like that. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, That's being, using gifts. That's how we talk to each other now, through memes and gifts. So kind of putting into practice some of the stuff we're doing. So what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is taking loads of our work, producing case studies for the website, a page that defines the campaign, and having those on the site, because that will increase our SEO. And that will also mean when brands come and look at our site, they might say, right, we're a toothpaste company, and have they got any examples of similar content to toothpaste brands? And if they see, literally, that's how brands often buy agencies. They go, have you done this before? Was it successful? Do we like the look of it? Yeah, okay. My boss isn't going to kill me if I hire you and it goes terribly wrong, because I can say, look, they did a good job for Aquafresh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nice.
So I'm going to be doing that, mate. I'm going to be doing that, and anyone at home, we're all going through the same thing at the minute. It's pretty desperate. We're in a. It might look rosy and great here, but we're very worried as a business, and we've been through recessions before. We've been through tough times, even in recent years, and we're confident that we can just hibernate. Work on our upskilling ourselves and work on our content and get through it,
Nice.
And it's keeping busy and doing stuff like the podcast and trying to give back to the ecosystem as you're doing. So thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, mate. It's been interesting.
Pleasure. Has it changed the way, everything that's happening at the minute, has it changed the way that you do work? Has it been a reset button for the company, or what's happening?
Yeah. In some ways it has, and in others it hasn't at all. We're largely based. A lot of our team are digital nomads. That we're highly skilled. A network of highly skilled people that maybe work from home already. So that hasn't changed. There's less work out there now because brands don't want to advertise, because they don't want to spend budgets that they can use to employ their staff. No one's spending on media or creative because no one's buying at the minute. Everybody's shit scared, obviously. And that just means that we've got people at home. In terms of how we're built up, we spend a lot of time trying to limit our overheads. Overheads meaning rent, fancy office locations. We don't go down that route. Head count. So a lot of our workforce are essentially freelancers, but they work for us pretty much full time often. So we don't carry employees as such. Whilst I'm an employee and we do have some in the core team, at times like this, we're limited headcount, which means we don't have those overheads that can send us. You want to avoid making anyone redundant, but you also need to remain a company that's profitable. And it only takes, as we've learned in the past, it only takes a few months of, not much work and having a high headcount. At the end of each month, everyone's got to get paid.
Yeah.
And you have massive cash flow issues. So it's another lesson in cash flow for us. And it's another lesson in not having all your eggs in one basket, diversifying. So one of our major clients is an ad agency. It's probably 60% of our turnover in Australia. As a worldwide ad agency, a group, they've decided to not use suppliers, to not use even freelancers, in order to keep their own staff, as they should, employed, because they've got in-house teams that do what we do. They use us globally because, we do it better and we're more efficient than the teams that they've got in-house, which is often the case, or we're specialists in certain fields. But quite rightly, their CEO in France has said, we're not going to do it through the COVID period and maybe beyond for a period. In order to keep everyone employed within the business, we're not going to work with any suppliers. So the switch went off overnight. We lost 60 to 70% of stuff. Ongoing projects that we're working on got pulled, everything, So don't have your eggs all in one basket was a great business lesson. Often easier said than done, because while you're working for, while the team are busy working for a client, you don't necessarily have enough time in the day to start a new business agenda, looking for more clients.
Yeah.
But what businesses must always do is exactly that, either employ somebody, a new business development person, or even part-time, they can work from home, to constantly to trying to push that envelope, trying to get more clients, trying to diversify, so that if one goes, you haven't got all your eggs in one basket. So using this time now to re-strategize about, as a business, how we can offer more services, what's next? What's next? Is it a completely different agency model whereby brands pay, subscription based, or is it going to move back to the traditional sense of an agency wins the client and works for them for a number of years, instead of that project by project approach I was talking about before? We're kind of looking at what's next as we all get used to working from home. Our competitors, who aren't as agile as we are, because we work from home on an hourly basis, they're going to start doing exactly what we're doing. So, there's going to be more competition around that section that we fit quite nicely into, which is being agile, being from home. Clients can contact us. We can literally jump onto a brief within about an hour. We work 24 hours a day because our team are all over the world. It's that's going to become the norm, and that's not going to be our USP anymore, our unique selling point to clients. So, man, it'll keep you up at night thinking about it. But so it should. It's about diversifying and not resting on your laurels.
From a boiling, just absolutely boiling that down to my own personal perspective, personal situation, even. It's like that. Assets and liabilities income stream is like, all of a sudden, having been a relatively busy second AD, the industry shuts down. It's like, where is your income stream coming from?
Yeah.
So it's been a reset, personally speaking, as well. So those kind of the things that you're talking about from a business perspective, I might start kind of trying to think about how that can boil itself down to a person who, some of your people that can work from home, but they work for one company. Can they be doing other things? Can they, it's for me, it's a massive reset. It's like a big, okay, it's just, you just on this juggernaut of, okay, I've always wanted to be on a film set. What now happens? Now that this has happened and everyone's just sitting at home, the podcast has kept me sane. Talking to lovely people like you has been amazing. And I think that the world is having a reset, and unfortunately some businesses aren't going to come through this just because they were living day to day. But luckily companies like yourself that have got the massive big global help can just make a few tweaks. So just all the best, just big love.
Thanks, dude.
Big love. Any plans for this evening then, or is it just chilling in?
I don't know. I'm lucky in that it's not summer here, but it's been really nice. It's kind of I guess it's autumn technically, but it's still light. I might go for a walk. Exactly like you're saying now. It just made me think. Having this time to reset and actually think is so important. I've learned fairly recently that I'm just crap after concentrating on something because my day's often bitty, and that gives me kind of a bit of clarity and time to think in between stuff. But being at home and doing, I guess, deep work, the importance to take a step back and go for a walk. And what can happen when you go for a walk or a run for creativity or thinking through something strategically or resetting like you're talking about and looking at the bigger perspective is amazing. So I think I'm going to probably do that. I'm going to go for a walk and, I guess run through what we've just been talking about and defrag a little bit. And it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it, mate. Thanks very much.
It's been ages since we've spoken for this long. It's
I
given
know.
me like really good excuses to kind of talk to old friends and people that I haven't kind of touched base. You know, it's like, yeah, we WhatsApp and it's how are you, yeah, thing, but time frames of, you know, and also it's teaching me that, you know, I can do this. This can happen. Whereas I'll be like, oh, he lives out in Australia. I can't get in touch because we know that. It's like, no, actually, it can happen.
Point.
And look, this is it. It's this easy. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
totally.
what you put the importance to. And whereas we're all just trying to survive, now this whole self-lockdown, well, not self-lockdown, but semi-imposed lockdown is happening. It's nice because it's given us all time to kind of do things and
reach out to
and just reassess
network.
and reach out to mates. So yeah, look, thank you so much, ladies and gents. I hope you had a lovely time enjoying this. One, for just old friends reconnecting, but two, if you want to get into the ad side, do what Chris has said. Hit those people up. Use this time now to go on LinkedIn, find those people that might be able to give you a job and get creative, hitting them up. Don't just send them a bog standard email with their name spelt wrong and, you know, a list of things that you've done. Be creative, start a website, use this time now to just upskill. So big love. Thank you so much, brother. Ladies and gents,
contact me if need be. Any questions, christopher.gregson at space66.com. Hit me up.
Email. Sweet. I'll put it in the bio. So go down or swipe left or swipe right, wherever the bio is for you. Hit them up with an email if you've got a question at Space66 Australia. Follow them. There's going to be a load of great stuff coming out in the next couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months. And until we meet again, ladies and gents, that is a wrap.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, mate. Look after yourself.
So that was a chat with the king or queen. In the game, I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.